Hello and welcome to Mindset and Muscles with Amanda. I am your host, Amanda Ferlisi. Welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time listening. I am very excited continuing my series with these wonderful women that I have, gotten such a great experience with so far. I'm going to introduce Jackie. Jackie Ross, or some refer to her as Coach Jackie, lives in Litchfield, Connecticut with her partner Nancy and fur baby Lucy. She's a career development and mental fitness coach. She helps women leaders go from uncertainty to powerful levels of confidence and career clarity. She is on a mission to help her clients triumph and transform over burnout. Jackie, welcome and thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Amanda. I appreciate it.
Yes. So, we connected a couple weeks ago, had a brief conversation, and I like to get to know my people that are going to be on the podcast just a little bit before, not too much, because I know some things are going to come up that'll be a little juicy. So, Jackie, I know we had a conversation about mental fitness and all of that and how this would be a great combination. So, I just wanted to know your story. So, how you got into your current role.
Got it. So I'll take it back a little bit. So I actually started out in the world of behavioral and mental health. My grandfather was a psychiatrist and he practiced in the 30s and 40s and unfortunately died very young. I didn't get a chance to know him, but
Mhm.
I always felt this natural curiosity about understanding people, understanding what makes us tick. And I think as a coach, really uncovering what are the ways in which we could just thrive and grow. So I started working with I actually worked with women in prison. I worked with youth who had emotional and behavioral challenges. I ended up running some very large treatment facilities. And after about 10 years, I decided that although I wasn't on the path toward being a clinician or a therapist, I still loved that world, but I was really interested in the business side. And
Mhm.
so I actually went into the world of human resources. And really, for many moons, I brought my background in behavioral health into the world of HR. And at the time, I didn't recognize what a marriage it was because really what I was doing was I was supporting the workforce navigate um, workplace issues, workplace relationships, help them position themselves for promotability,
Mhm.
look at what was next in their career, and really, in essence, what I was doing was coaching.
Right.
So I decided to get certified as a coach, and really where I found the areas that I felt I can contribute the most, and I got the most jazzed up in terms of working with was really helping female entrepreneurs and leaders really look at how do I kind of challenge some of those internal critics that
Mhm.
all exist for us that are universal, and build these levels of confidence so that I can identify where I want to go next, so that I could lean into my positions with more confidence, and feel more influential. And so I have various certifications. I'm a life coach, a career coach, a mental fitness coach. But really, the mental fitness piece, if we think about the last several years, we're kind of coming off the heels of the pandemic.
Mhm.
We know how much mental health has emerged, especially uh, challenges for female entrepreneurs and
Mhm.
female leaders,
Mhm.
because the workforce is really challenging us to pay attention and focus on their mental health and their mental wellness. So I always think it's really important that the best place to start is with ourselves. So I hope that that gives you a little bit of a picture. I have my own private coaching practice. And so, yeah,
I
that's kind of how I
Jackie,
landed where I am.
this is incredible. So you didn't give me like the whole nitty gritty of the whole background, and I love that. I'm sorry to hear that about your grandfather, but he seemed like he was, in the same wave is you of helping people, right? And even though you didn't go the path of becoming a clinician, you're still in the path of helping people, which you and I can relate wholeheartedly to because there's nothing more fulfilling than helping individuals. I'd like to actually ask a question. I mean, you brought something up super interesting to me. I mean, a few things, to be honest. And you said you worked with women in prison. And
Mm.
can you give any information about that and what the work that you did there was?
What I did when I was in college, and this is going back a while ago, we had to do internships. And the college I went to, and is it okay if I share it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's now called Leslie University, but it was Leslie College when I went there.
Hmm.
And they were pretty progressive. I was in a program for human services and counseling, and you had to do internships during all 4 years of your undergraduate program, which is more popular now, but 30 years ago, that was not the norm. And so I actually, and this is when phone books were around, so you couldn't check it out on the
Yeah.
internet. So I literally went to the yellow pages and I looked up the very first organization was called AIM, Aid to Incarcerated Mothers.
Hmm.
And literally what I did is I called up the director, I met with her. She was a lovely woman in Boston. Her name was Jean Fox. I don't know if she's still
Hmm.
around. Um, but she started this nonprofit. And it was really to provide transportation to children whose mothers were incarcerated at MCI Framingham and bring them there and spend time with them, etc. And so I used to go around. There was this cop in Boston. Her name was Robin. She was awesome. She had a flat top at the time. This is in the 80s.
Yeah.
And we would rent this 15 passenger van and I would run around and go to the apartments or the homes of where these children, anywhere from babies to 18 years old, and I used to bring them to the prison. We did it twice a week, and we'd spend time visiting with the moms, and bringing their children there, and they loved us because we were bringing their babies,
Yeah.
and I would chat with the women, and they would invite me to the different events that were there. There was a family day, and so I did that for several years, and really became connected to some folks there, but really became connected largely to their children. Um, and so that was one of my experiences. So yeah, that was
I mean, that takes a lot of I don't know what the word is. Like, were you scared? Were you nervous? What did you get out of that? Because obviously, like, it seems like you're trying to help women from whatever happened in their life or whatever they did, whatever, be connected with their family. And a lot of people are, that are incarcerated are, taken away from their family and completely estranged. And I love that you are doing that for them. So, can you explain any of that experience as far as like how you felt initially and then also what you learned from that experience that you still potentially utilize today?
mm, great question. No one has really asked me these, so you're really challenging my memory. Um, you know, was I afraid? No. I've always had a fascination with prisons, and I don't mean that I wanted to be in
Right.
prison, right? But I just had this curiosity about this, kind of institution that exists, and especially with women. I mean, I was running around. Unfortunately, most of the women at the time, and probably still today, they were there for economic reasons.
Hmm.
They were there around domestic violence incidences. They
Hmm.
were there for, kind of writing bad checks, et cetera,
Hmm.
and often many marginalized communities. So I would be running up and down projects, like Columbia Point in Dorchester, and just knocking on doors. And I'm this like, 19-year-old white kid that's, kind of, going there. And for some reason, I don't know. It never had me concerned or
Hmm.
worried. I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel any of those things. If anything, I probably felt more of empathy for the children, right?
Right.
Because here they are, they're without their moms, being raised by a variety of, whether it's family members, et cetera.
Mhm.
Um, and then the moms who had, maybe 2 hours a week as an opportunity to actually parent, and how conflicting that was. On
Mhm.
one hand, they're, being guided by whatever the, kind of rules are of the prison and being confined. And then for a couple hours a week, they actually have to be moms. And not that they're not moms any
Correct,
other
yeah.
time during that week, but actually having to, in person parent. Um, and so I think I felt more empathy. And I
Right.
think that's really where, um, I guess I feel like you never know you never know what people's experiences are, and lived experiences and previous history that kind of contributes to where they are. So I think that's why I really think about empathy as a key aspect for female entrepreneurs, for leaders, and most importantly, the empathy that we have for ourselves, because that's often the area that is lacking the most, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's incredible the work that you did there. I mean, I could go on for days, but I want to move it a little forward towards you are working with clients to ensure that they don't burn out, or maybe they have burnt out. And this is something that I have also struggled with in my entrepreneurial journey, right? And then a lot of people around me. So, can you talk to us about what tools you use to help these women with burnout, and maybe women that are about to burn out or have? Can you explain that a little bit?
absolutely. And burnout shows up, and manifests in so many different ways:
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, physically, spiritually, in all, it affects all areas. I'm trained in a particular program that I facilitate with folks. It's called Positive Intelligence. And it's really about guiding folks through an 8-week program that really helps us to become more present and grounded, because oftentimes there's these external factors that can be contributing to burnout.
Mm-hmm.
It's also internal factors that contribute to burnout. And how do we find ways to manage that on a daily basis? So, what are the things that we do every single day throughout the day to inject the things that bring us joy, the things that
Mm-hmm.
create, and energize us, or maybe the things that actually decompress us if we're ramped up a bit? And oftentimes I will speak to clients who, especially many folks who are working at home, and those that are working at home reportedly are working longer, are more overwhelmed and stressed, because a lot of those social connections that they had in the
Yes.
workplace are gone. A lot of those natural breaks that you took, or you kind of passed by someone's office and you were chatting for a few minutes, are gone. And so many of the folks that I work with are starting their days, like, literally. I spoke to a client yesterday, and one of her strategies is, I'm going to get up and not jump on my computer and start my day at work. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
get up and I'm going to go for a walk and have breakfast. And we might think, like, well, is wouldn't that be the kind of the norm to do
Right.
anyway? And that's not the norm. The norm today is that people are spending more time, because it's more accessible, more available,
Mm-hmm.
and there's this kind of unspoken expectation, right? If leaders in their organization are not setting the example, then it becomes the expectation that you actually do what everyone else is doing. So I think it's finding every single day those things. And these are kind of the things that I think about
Mm-hmm.
when I would coach new managers and leaders on how can you recognize and motivate your team. I would give them these three areas to think about. What's something that you can do, that's something that you could do right now to recognize and motivate your team? What's something that's free, and what's something that you don't have to jump through hoops or get permission or approval to do. And I think the same thing is true with self-care. It's what can I do right now?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do that's free? And what can I do that I don't have to jump through hoops? And so it's almost like we need this cadre of things to do that are available to us. Like I have these, stones on my desk.
Mm-hmm.
I have crystals on my desk,
Yep.
things like that. Um, I like to go outside on the deck at least for, 5 or 10 minutes and just get some fresh air or go if I have an opportunity to go for a walk with my dog. I have trails right around the corner. So what are those things that you can do every single day and also weaken those kind of those beliefs that you have that you don't have time, because I think that's
Yes.
absolutely nonsense. We tell ourselves we don't have time, and yet if we really calculated the
Mm-hmm.
mental energy that we put into all that stuff, we have lots of time.
Absolutely. I love
Yeah,
what you're saying. And I know in our initial conversation, we were talking about how fitness is important to the both of us and getting up and you go to your classes and you go to the gym, and I do too. And I can relate that to a lot of my clients as well, because I'm always, not only am I training them, but I preach like on the days that you don't see me, make sure that you're doing the things for yourself and disconnecting from work. And in particular, I have one client that his culture is at work is very focused on you work from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. And even during training sessions, he's has his phone, and eventually it created unhealthy habits, X, Y, and Z. And now he's on the I start my work at this time, I finish at this time, because I was seeing that he was burning out. And I think it's crucial that you're talking about this, because a lot of people think like I work from home. I train my clients in a studio in my house and I do all of my other work at home. And it's very easy to let me open up my laptop, let me open up my phone, let me get started on the day and not put me and my health and my wellness first. So the fact that you're talking about that is huge, and ingraining that into people and creating some type of structure, because eventually if you don't do that, you're going to burn out. So, which leads to my other question. Have you ever personally felt burnout?
great question. So the catalyst that actually had me launch my business full time was, and this was the irony. So one of the areas that my clients would bring up a lot to me were experiences and challenges with bad bosses.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's, I think all of us have had experiences. However, when you are in a very toxic workplace and you really don't have that champion, and your confidence starts to get rattled. You feel like, you second guess your decisions, and there's all this, incredible stress. This was a, primary area of focus that lots of clients were bringing to me. So I actually decided I was going to write a book. And I wrote a book called Manage Up, The Ultimate Guide to Managing Your Manager. And it really had not just strategies around how do you manage your boss, but it's really about how do you manage your career. It's
Mm-hmm.
really kind of the thread. And so my last full-time position, I was director of HR, and I encountered probably the worst boss I had ever experienced in all of my professional life. And I thought, well, okay, I'm this, expert on this topic. I can just like whip out all my,
Mm-hmm.
various strategies, and one after the other, they just repeatedly failed. They just continued to fail. And what I recognized was that just like any relationship, sometimes it's just not a fit.
Right.
There were very clear things that, were problematic with the person's leadership, who was guiding me.
Mm-hmm.
However, and as a result, I would come home and it would be very difficult for me to shake off, situations that happened. I was feeling really stressed. I was dreading going into work. It was, at work, I was feeling like I, had this, kind of someone breathing down my neck. He was a true micromanager. And so burnout was really, I was absolutely burnt out. However, the upside is that it really had that not happened,
Mhm.
I would not have launched my business full time. So burnout, recognizing the signs of burnout, recognizing if this is a an environment that's just not conducive where you can thrive and grow,
Mhm.
is critical. And when we have some distance, and whether it's physical distance, emotional distance, we can often see that those situations may have been incredible opportunities for us in order to move to the next place. So sometimes we need that shove. And that was my big shove.
I mean, it's unfortunate that you went through the burnout. However, it seems like it was the biggest, you know, and realization that you needed to do what you wanted to do that makes you happy for yourself and for your career. So I feel as though a lot of entrepreneurs that I actually meet, the majority of them have had some type of emotional duress, whatever it is,
Mhm.
burnout, issue within the workplace that catapulted them into a great career as an entrepreneur, whatever that business is. My last client, I mean, the last woman I had on my podcast, same thing. She went through a lot of burnout. Boom, she created her own career, her own business. Same with you. And for me, when the pandemic hit, I was a trainer in the gym and they just all of a sudden fired everyone. So I was literally, here you go. Like, this is what you're either not going to work or you start off on your own. So I feel as though we all go through something like something sudden, something earth shattering, and we start our own career. And I think that's super amazing that we're able to be so resilient and learn from that burnout or learn from that thing. And I love that. Can you give us a little bit more about how you started your business? So you went through that burnout and then you said you started your business. Can you give us a little bit of how that started and any ups and downs that you went through?
Oh, absolutely. My business actually started over 10 years ago. So when I got certified as a coach,
Hmm.
um, I actually didn't do anything for 2 years, because I honestly had no idea how to start a business. Because if you've ever read the book, The E Myth Revisited, it's all about why small businesses fail. And really, the whole premise is that we're really good technicians, we're kind of masters of our craft. But to be a manager, an entrepreneur, a marketer, all those other hats that we have to
Yes.
wear, right? Where sometimes we get a bit lost. So it took me a good 2 years to really make that decision of just saying I'm doing it. And when I said I'm doing it, I said all I need is a website, and I'm not Google, right? I don't need all the bells and whistles. I
Hmm.
just need people to know who I am, what I do, and how to connect with me. And I needed business cards. And that's what I did when I started it. So my business really started as a side gig. I
Hmm.
built my coaching practice from working with individuals to working with organizations. I do trainings and workshops and presentations. Um, and it took me the 10 years, to really realize, because I was always like straddling, working full time, building my business, but I was never fully in because it was hard to be.
Hmm.
And the last year and a half, it has gone through so many iterations. The amazing thing is I have wonderful coaching colleagues. So I have a coaching circle. We are our board of directors to one another. We're our wise counsel. We coach one another professionally, personally, etc. And so those have been staples. The other thing that I think is just huge, and I share this with people all the time, that networking is key. And it's not just true as an entrepreneur, it's
Hmm.
true for everybody. And networking doesn't have to be scary, it doesn't have to be this dreaded experience. Networking is really about building and sustaining relationships and serving others. And when you do that, you naturally start to open doors and opportunities come and connections grow. So, you know, I'm learning all the time. I would say that my business has gone through various iterations.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm rebuilding my website. I'm looking at starting a Facebook group. So I'm a learner. I think I'm, in many ways, I think a teacher and a coach. And so it's a constant journey. So, um, anyone who is worried or scared or concerned, join the club. We are all we're all trying to figure it out.
I love what you just said about the fact that you were working and started a business because I know people in my life, whether it's a friend, client, family, that they want to do their own, they want to have their own business, they want to start something. And they think, well, they can't do it because they're working. But again, it's back to the time situation. You can always make time, whether it's an hour or two, whatever. I love how you balanced that and then you went off on your own. That's incredible because a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that because I'm very sure that that is very stressful. Another thing that you just brought up is um you're constantly learning and constantly, essentially, I always say rolling with the punches because we're not perfect. You and I didn't open up a book and said, this is the blueprint to exactly what I want to do. Here it is. Because there isn't one. Because as people, we're changing all the time and adapting and evolving, right? So I'm sure what you originally wanted to do, it's not 100% that, but you kept growing and learning through your networking, through your clients, and all of that. So I love that you pointed that out because when I personally started my business, I was like, I have to do this and this is what I do forever. It's like, no, like I evolved and I started a podcast that was super scary. I did it. I just wanted to do it. I did it. And I love the fact that you're really painting a picture of a journey that is continuously going towards your own self-fulfillment by way of doing what's making you happy as well as doing learning through other people and your counsel. I love that. That makes me so happy because we're all scared as entrepreneurs. You and I may be different for what we do on a day to day, but the goal is to be better and learn. So I really wanted to point that out because a lot of people listening that might be like, oh, like I want to start this business of some sort, but I do this full time. You just showed that you're able to do that, as well as it's scary, but you have people around you that you can reach out to. And I just had one more question for you,
Hmm.
Jackie. You you have shared so many incredible things with us today. What's something that you want to share with someone out there? Anything, any piece of advice, saying whatever you want.
It's a great question. I think probably two things.
Yeah.
Most of the time, we think that we're so far off, and we're really not. We're way closer than we ever think that we are. And I use the analogy with golf. I'm not a fantastic golfer, I'm a beginner, but I've heard Tony Robbins would say things like, in order to make the difference between hitting the ball on the fairway or hitting it out like in the trees is often these kind of like milli movements, like
Mm-hmm.
these minute movements. I think the same is true around our journeys, whether it's a career journey, a personal journey. We are often not far away from where we want to be. And the second thing is that we are in really good company because this is just universal. We often think we're alone, that we're the only one that feels this way. And that is just so far from the truth. We are in amazing, shared company. So I would say those two things are what I always even just reinforce to myself.
Jackie, I'm not even going to add anything to that other than I agree wholeheartedly. We're not alone, and your advice was great. Jackie, I thoroughly enjoyed this podcast. I feel like I could talk to you and ask you like thousands of questions, and it would take hours, and we might have to do another one. So I want to thank you very much for being part of my podcast. I had a great time chatting with you, and I can't wait to share this. One more thing, can you tell people where to find you?
Absolutely. So you can go to Coach Jackie Ross ross.com, like Diana Ross, or they can email me at jackie@coachjackieross.com.
Awesome. I will have that information below in the description. Jackie, thank you again so much for joining us today. And for everyone listening, please make sure you share this with someone, like, subscribe, all the things. And again, thank you for joining us today on today's episode with Jackie. And all of the information for both of us will be down below. Have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are.
Thanks so